Hi everybody, welcome to the Witching Week, episode 5. If you're new here, this is basically just a cup of tea and a chat, and then I will pull 5 tarot cards at the end and give you a message for the week ahead or for life in general. A little bit croaky today. Unfortunately, I've had a horrible virus all week. I don't think it is the virus. I've been testing negative, but as the week's gone on, I've been feeling more and more poorly. So I'm a bit hoarse, a bit deeper than usual, but we'll go with it. So we've been doing this for 5 weeks already. It's really hard to believe, actually. It's gone past in the blink of an eye. Last week we were talking about the change in seasons. I think it was last week, maybe the week before. It was last week. I'm probably going to repeat myself in some of these videos. But yeah, I was thinking actually that a week is actually quite a good way of measuring what's going on seasonally. A week doesn't sound like very much, does it, in time? But I'm noticing real differences between one week and the next as to what the weather is like. And this week, it's really dark in the mornings. 5:30 I've been awake and it's been quite dark. Usually obviously in the summer it would be light at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then we've got the darkness as well at the other end of the day. Come about 8:30, 8:15, it's certainly getting very dusky now. So we're definitely moving forwards in the wheel of the year and in the calendar, and those differences are definitely starting to be noticed. So we're a few weeks, aren't we, away now from the autumn equinox. I thought I'd talk a little bit about that this morning. Obviously there is some controversy over whether we call it the autumn equinox or whether we refer to it as Mabon, I think it's Mabon. And I just thought I would clarify some things for people who have seen the controversy, seen the arguments within witchcraft and pagan groups, but aren't actually sure what that's all about. So the term Mabon, that was adopted by pagans in the 1970s, and it actually has very little to do with the autumn equinox. The name actually comes from a character in Welsh mythology. I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce the names. I don't want to offend anyone, but if you have a dig about online and about this subject, you'll be able to learn a little bit more. We have definitive names for our 4 Celtic fire festivals. We've got Imbolc, we've got Beltane, we've got Lunasa, and we've got Samhain. And over the years, we've adopted other names for the equinoxes and the solstices. A lot of these names have very little sort of evidence to suggest that they've been used for a long amount of time. And so I would suggest that most of these names are probably, things that we've adopted in recent years. So we have Ostara for the spring equinox, we have Litha for the summer solstice, and then we have Yule for the winter solstice. And then that just leaves the autumn equinox, and many people use Mabon. But some Welsh speakers and Welsh people obviously feel uncomfortable about that. There is no link really from this name and from this character to the autumn equinox itself. So I tend to go with the autumn equinox. That feels right to me. It feels like a major shift in the calendar in terms of the weather, in terms of starting to think about the winter is a big thing for me personally. So I refer to it as the autumn equinox. I do refer to it as Mabon in my own grimoire because no one is, going to see that. And that's my personal book as it stands at the moment. So I do refer to it in some places as that, but I have an explanation as well in my grimoire, just as a reminder to me that that's not necessarily the name. So some people believe that even just having this conversation means that the name Mabon is perpetuated when it shouldn't be used. I'm not about to tell you how to live your craft. I'm also not going to speak for Welsh people. I'm not Welsh. In fact, I don't think I have any Welsh heritage. I don't know. I'd have to check my DNA. But yeah, I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but I thought we'd talk a little bit about that and where the arguments and the discrepancies and the controversy comes from, because I know there are a lot of new pagans who follow me, or new witches should I say. I don't like the term baby witch, but there's a lot of people that follow me on Instagram and ask me these sorts of questions. So there it is, a little bit of background for you. Also, as we head into this part of the year towards the autumn equinox and Samhain, many people refer to this as the season of the witch. And again, I'm not going to tell you that you can't do that, but for some pagans, myself included, I find this term really strange, especially as we have such a big emphasis on the fact that we've got a wheel of the year and it's a cycle. So for me, it's not the season of the witch. All year is the season of the witch. And I totally get why people get excited. I'm not dissing anyone who wants to call it that. You can call whatever you want, I don't care. And I totally get the love for autumn. I totally get, wearing those warmer clothes, getting the boots and the snuggly jumpers out, having the hot chocolate or the pumpkin spice latte, if that's your thing. The trees turning a different colour, and Samhain is really exciting. But it's like I said before, there's this tendency to jump from, Lunasa and the harvest to Samhain, forgetting the autumn equinox. So it's really important, if you follow the festivals, I think, to sort of take note of them all. And there is this tendency as well to call this part of the year the season of the witch. My friend and I, Crow, this is her Marg. She runs the Margate English School of Witchcraft and Magic. So check her out. She's on Instagram and she's got a website, a bit of a shameless plug there. But my friend Crow and I, we talk about this all the time. I perhaps have referred to it as the season of the witch over the years because that's what many people like to sort of call it. But really, all year is the season of the witch. And for me personally, my path and things that get my juices flowing, I would say that there are other parts of the year that I find more exciting than this part of the year. But that's just personal preference, and we're all just walking our own individual paths, aren't we? So there's no right or wrong. And that's the best thing about it. So I've started thinking about my autumn equinox celebrations, and I do really like the autumn equinox because it very much centres on the themes of giving thanks, being appreciative, having gratitude. It's something that I tend to uphold in my life anyway. I'm a very grateful person. I'm always very happy to open my eyes to another day, and part of keeping sort of mental well-being, I believe it's really important that we notice all the little things and all the things that we can be happy for and grateful for. So I've started to think about Thanksgiving and ways of showing gratitude and being aware of being grateful, and I'm probably going to talk about that in a sort of a week or two as we get closer to the autumn equinox. So one thing I am really grateful this year is I have found these, which I'm going to put probably on my Samhain altar. I've got a little pumpkin as well. And yeah, I suppose I'm always sort of thinking maybe 2 festivals ahead in terms of planning. But also I find, and this is where this YouTube channel is going to be really lovely, because this is an opportunity for me to chat and talk ahead, whereas I find that with my Instagram page, I'm usually a bit behind because I plan things in advance. I take the days where I'm well and I create content and I create whatever is in my mind at that particular moment, or what's interesting me, or just the creative thoughts that pop into my head. And then usually, if there's been a celebration or a trip of some kind, or some way that I've marked a Sabbath, then usually that happens when it happens and is filmed or recorded or noted, and then that gets shown after the time. So I'm really grateful this year for having this opportunity to be able to have another platform where I can sort of talk talk ahead of time and talk ahead of the Sabbats, which is probably really the most helpful thing if you're starting out on this path and you're following someone and you want to learn and you want to know stuff before the event happens. So, but anyway, yeah, I found these in town, in a shop whose name I'm not going to name. I'm not going to advertise them because generally I don't really like their stuff and some of their practices, but I did, however, find these, and yeah, my daughter encouraged me to get them. So yeah, so that's the autumn equinox and Samhain, and on the subject of Samhain and obviously ancestors and ancestor veneration and loved ones that have passed over, today is actually the anniversary of me losing my friend Terry. So I'm going to try and talk about this without getting too emotional. I can feel the tears rising, but he was an absolutely great man. Some of you following me know me personally, so you would know Terry yourself, and some of you have heard of Terry through my page, and many of you would know Terry because he was the Archdruid of Avebury. So he was my friend for many years. I've known him for a long time, and he was an absolute, I don't want to say beast because that sounds like negative, but he was a beast of a man. He was big, he was tall, he was broad, he had a big booming laugh, he gave the biggest hugs, and yeah, it's one of the greatest losses that I personally have experienced, and I've been finding it really difficult, and it's getting harder as time goes on. I'm really missing him, and it's been a year now. And I know he would just pat my hand, and with a twinkle in his eye, he would smile at me, and he would remind me, as a druid to a witch, he would remind me that it's just, you know, the cycle of life. But it's very hard, isn't it, when you lose somebody who is a great friend. And he, you know, he watched my daughter grow up. I've got a beautiful picture of him and my daughter Tabby sitting on the ringstone in Avebury, and she's tiny. I think she was 3, and they're sitting back to back. And so you've got, you know, the younger generation, and then you've got the older generation. You've got you know, a future ancestor there, and then you've got this, you know, little witch. I call her a witchling. She's not witchy, but though she does have the gift. But yeah, so that has been a really tough thing to deal with, and I think the lead up today has actually been worse perhaps than the day itself is going to pan out to be. And I'm just sending so much love to anybody that loved him, anyone that feels the great big Terry-sized hole in their heart. And I could talk about him as the Archdruid of Avebury. I could talk about the love that he brought to his hand fastings, to a community, to a whole group of people, whether they be druids or witches or pagans of another kind, or just visitors coming to Avebury and seeing him in motion. And I've totally forgotten my thread there, but yeah, in his honour, yeah, I could talk about him being, you know, the Archdruid of Avebury and that TV personality and that person that we all knew him to be. But I want to remember him as a friend. I want to remember him as what he was to me. His position, I know a lot of people sort of would be starstruck by someone like that, and there are a lot of sort of people that were sort of hangers on because, you know, this man had this title and this position. But to me, he was my friend. He was the person that came to my house for dinner. He was the person that gave me advice on children and partners, and he was the person that hand-fasted me to my husband. He was the person that I would sit in the pub and he would, you know, recount tales and stories. And he was the person that would give me strict instructions on dinner, even though I knew that he didn't like to eat anything green. So I'm choosing to remember him today by thinking of the love that he put into the world, his sense of community, and also the thought that I will honour him by making the most of my life and being happy with whatever cards I'm given, and always having a good word to say, and always having space for laughter and humour, and just trying to understand the world and the people in it. So here's to Terry. I'm fighting back the tears here, and yeah, I'm sorry if you're watching this, but you know, this was always going to be just a personal sort of vlog, if you like, and a chance to share my world with you. So here's to Terry Dobney, Archdruid and Keeper of the Stones. You will never be forgotten, and your name will ring out for hundreds of years to come. I've no doubt about that. So I think that is sort of all the witchy and pagan things that I wanted to talk about today. There was something else I wanted to share with you, something that's not sort of related to witchcraft at all, but something that I've been really enjoying this week and the last few weeks with my husband. It's another channel on YouTube. I don't have any connections to this channel. I'm not shouting out to, you know, someone I know to further them. They've got a huge following. This is just something I have been enjoying this week, and it's a channel called Soft White Underbelly, and it is a channel by a photographer. His name is Mark Later, and it's all about the human condition. So he not only does he photograph these amazingly beautiful black and white portraits, but he interviews people and speaks to them about their experiences. He's based on Skid Row in Los Angeles, and a lot of people have criticised his work. They think it's controversial. They think that he is exploiting people, whereas I see it completely differently. I've watched quite a few interviews that he's done. They've got millions and millions of views. He's been hard at this now for a few years. And every single video that I've seen, he has spoken to these people with compassion. He's listened. He doesn't talk much throughout the interviews. Some of the interviews, you can see that he's got a really good rapport with some of the characters that he's met quite a few times. So there, you know, there's a bit of back and forth. But on the whole, he'll ask a few pointed questions, and then he just allows these people to explain and narrate their stories. So a lot of the people he's dealing, I mean, if you know anything about Skid Row, you know there's a lot of people there who have all sorts of social and economic issues. There's obviously a lot of heartache there. There's a lot of addicts. So he interviews a lot of people like meth addicts, fentanyl addicts, but he also interviews people like, for example, there's been a hitman. There are people with certain mental health disorders. There are people that are facing all sorts of challenges, and it's not a miserable channel, not by any means. The stories are heartbreaking, but you can clearly see that it's really cathartic for these people to actually talk to someone who wants to listen, and it's really important to them to get their story out. And yeah, I'm not finding it controversial at all. I'm actually really thankful that someone like Mark Later is, you know, giving people a chance to tell their stories when perhaps otherwise they've spent their lives dealing with trauma and have been unheard. It's actually quite an uplifting channel. I watched a video last night of a guy who was happy to use the word drifter. He walks the Pacific Crest Trail an awful lot with his two dogs. He doesn't have a fixed abode. He just walks, he just hikes, that's his thing. And very happy guy, and yeah, it's really uplifting. It's quite an uplifting channel in many ways, because these people are given their opportunities. So yeah, if you want something to watch and you enjoy watching things on YouTube, then I'm assuming you do if you're here, then yeah, Soft White Underbelly, I really recommend. Really enjoying that. And I'd love to know in the comments if you have been watching Soft White Underbelly, if you have any opinions on Marbon. Are you Welsh? How do you feel about the autumn equinox being called that? And yeah, let me know what your plans are for the weeks and months ahead. Do you call it the season of the witch? I'd love to know that. No judging if you do. This is a nice channel with nice people. I just really love to hear your experiences, and thank you to those who've left comments. It's probably going to take me about a week to answer those, but I will always get round to them. And yeah, I guess now we shall just move on and let's pull some cards. Now, it feels like I've been talking really, really quickly. That's a bit of an issue of mine. Sometimes when I get enthusiastic and excited, I tend to just go blah, 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 blah. So my apologies. I've been talking for about 20 minutes now, and my hope is that when I stop and play this back, it's going to be okay, and I'm not going to have to think I'm going to need to do that again, but we'll see, won't we? So let's pull some cards for the week ahead. I'm still trying to work out if 5 is the right amount. I mean, it's quite a few cards, but it really does help to put a message together. Last week I felt like the message was really, really brief, considering it was, but that was my intuition speaking. It just felt like the message was fairly concise and brief, and that I didn't have to ramble on about it. So we'll see. Hopefully it's a nice positive message for the week. I think even with cards that are considered negative, there is always a positive. I've actually just dropped a card on the floor. One has just flown out. So I think that will be our first card. Hang on a moment. Ooh, and that is the 5 of Swords. So that's our first card. That's quite a big message in that one in itself. Okay. I'm feeling the need to just spread these out and pick the rest, so we'll do that. We'll go with that. Always just go with the flow. Just go with whatever, whichever way you're drawn. And actually, intuitive witchcraft is something I like talking about, so maybe we'll do a video on that. I was going to release a video on Monday evening, but I'll be honest, I completely forgot. By Monday evening I was so unwell. And then it disappeared for a bit, which is really weird. And then it came back. It's been a very strange virus. Right, let's see. Okay, so we have that first one that flew out, the 5 of Swords. We have the 10 of Swords. We have Justice. We have the Magician. And we have the Page of Pentacles. So starting from the top then, and considering this is the week ahead, it looks like there might be some trouble ahead, perhaps an argument or something with a loved one, or some sort of situation that is going to leave you feeling sort of at a loss, really, and some grief. It's certainly going to feel like, the bitter end. The Swords is sort of usually related to issues and problems and conflict. So, this might well be a situation with someone else, or a group of people, or it might just be a situation coming to an end. But I'd say that the message here is to, learn to pick your battles, learn when it's a good time to speak your piece and when is a good time to just simply cut your losses and walk away. Sometimes sometimes you have to walk away, and that is winning the fight, but that's going to be a rough patch in the week a little bit, I feel. But I think there also needs to be the question, if you find yourself embroiled in something, what's been your role in all this? Can you honestly say, hand on heart, that you haven't caused this, or you haven't contributed to this, or you haven't made things worse in some way, in which case, I'm not sure that you've got the right to feel too bad about the way things have turned out. But who knows? It could be that, this bumpy bit has to happen for the better things to come. And certainly the Magician gives you the message that you've got the tools at your disposal, as always. And I always like to refer back to the Magician even when he doesn't come out, because he's just such a good message in life. He's the keeper of the subconscious and the conscious world. He's got one arm in the air and one pointing towards the floor, and he's got all the suits on the table. So you've got all your skills and your abilities on the table in front of you to use, you know, hopefully to navigate this situation, this bit of a bumpy ride that, you know, you might encounter this week. This message isn't going to resonate to all of you. It's merely advice on what to do if this comes up in your week. A lot of people feel that, you know, the tarot is all about telling fortunes, and it's really not. It's about opening your eyes to the human condition, the way we handle things. It's funny actually going back to, you know, soft white underbelly. The tarot is about, you know, self-development and the options that you have and the decisions that you can make, and bringing an awareness to, you know, your sense of self. And so yeah, it's about advice where you can take this week if you come across that. So, and then we've got the Ace of Pentacles up. So that is a lovely card. Obviously something good is hopefully going to come out of this situation. Something's going to come your way. So that's the cards for the week. We've just had a car come in. I don't know if you heard that right at the very end of the video. We've had no road sweepers this week. We've been lucky. And then right at the very last minute, we have a noisy car come racing through. But hey, that's living on a public cemetery for you. So with that in mind, I'm going to leave you with the Page of Pentacles, and I'm going to wish you a lovely, lovely week. Whatever you do, don't forget to update me in the comments what you're up to. Love to connect with you. And if you're not on Instagram, or you are and you're not aware of my page, go check me out. There are some scamming accounts that are copying me. So when you put in the Cemetery Witch, you might see more than one. My page is the one with about 29,000 followers. So come say hi. And I'm wishing you a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. All right, take care. Bye-bye.